Come on in, guys. Welcome to Idled Out, where we talk all things Survivor. My name is Luke, and today we're talking about 10 times Survivor players lied about their occupation. Like it or not, some jobs are loaded with a ton of baggage, especially in a $1 million game. When you tell people your profession in Survivor, it's automatically going to bring to mind certain stereotypes or lines of thinking. That's why every lawyer who's ever played this game has lied about being a lawyer. I mean, can you blame them? Just imagine a world without lawyers. Many players have lied about their occupation on Survivor, far more than ever make the final cut of the show. But 10 stick out in my mind as the most hilarious, interesting, or otherwise notable employment lies ever. I'll only be sticking to lies that we actually saw, discussed, or otherwise brought up on the show, however. All that said, let's dig into the 10 best job lies in Survivor history. At number 10 is Jim in Survivor South Pacific, who lied about being a medical marijuana dispensary owner and said he was a high school science teacher. Jim's obviously got a career that not everyone approves of, so I don't blame him for picking an alternate fake Survivor career. And science teacher is a pretty good cover. I assume all the weed dealing at least lends itself to some basic knowledge of chemistry and botany. Plus, if he accidentally slipped up and talked about selling weed, he could just say he sells it to his students after class. Jim, however, is also big moves personified. He was absolutely chomping at the bit to lie and play dirty. I honestly think that if his job actually were high school science teacher, he'd lie about that and say he was a marijuana dispensary owner. Not too much came of this lie, however. My understanding is Savai wasn't really a tribe that interested in getting to know one another, so it probably didn't come up often. And Jim was unceremoniously booted shortly after the merge. But still, it's symptomatic of Jim's borderline reckless overplaying. I mean, if anything, being a weed salesman would actually make him more popular on this tribe. At number 9 is a 2-for-1 Survivor Philippines deal, Lisa Welchel and Jeff Kent, who both lied about being celebrities. Usually, Survivor only casts one minor celebrity per season, but Philippines cast 2, and both sought to hide their wealth and fame, and both were caught red-handed. Let's start with Lisa, who acted in the TV show The Facts of Life. Lisa was hoping that no one would remember her 9-season, 2-movie run as Blair Warner on one of the most popular sitcoms of the 80s, and no one did, except for everyone in the game over the age of 40. Jonathan in particular is initially very sympathetic to Lisa, who finds being in an environment where no one really knows about her past refreshing, and they share a genuinely sweet moment together about the pressures of fame. At Final Tribal, though, he weirdly blows her cover, revealing to the jury that Lisa did indeed star on a sitcom as a teenager, despite initially promising to do no such thing when they first met. So the lie detector test determined that was a lie. Similarly, Jeff Kent, longtime second baseman in the MLB, casually omitted his 17-year baseball career when talking about work with his tribe. He told everyone he was a motorcycle salesman and rancher in Texas instead. The only player in the game who knew Jeff's identity was Sarah Dawson. Coincidentally, I'm sure, put on Calabao right alongside him. Dawson's one of the most underratedly hilarious Survivor players ever. She absolutely relished trolling Jeff Kent, maligning baseball as boring and baseball players as unathletic at every chance she got.
Maybe I should date an athlete.
What do you consider an athlete?
Football, basketball, then I guess at the end maybe baseball.
Watching Jeff squirm here is hilarious. He can barely resist the urge to jump in, but he wisely decides against correcting the record and saying that baseball isn't just guys standing around, it's guys standing around for hours. Can you do that, Dawson? At number 8 is Jeremiah in Survivor Kagayan, who lied about being a model. Yes, for some reason, Jeremiah thought it was necessary to his survival in the game to lie about his modeling career. I mean, if ever there was a season tailor-made for it to be okay for you to be a model on Survivor, it would be Brains v Brawn v Beauty, but I digress. I also love that he's lower thirded as a male model. as if we couldn't tell. In episode 9, Jeremiah, Spencer, and Tasha are on the ropes. They've failed to woo Jeffra to their side. Things are looking pretty grim. And much like Tom Hanks in Saving Private Ryan, sharing his career back home to sow unity among C Company when they were at their absolute lowest point, Jeremiah decides to tell his squad his big secret.
Can I tell y'all something that I didn't tell nobody? Are y'all cool?
Yeah.
I'm a fashion model.
No wonder you're so freaking hot.
Incredibly, Spencer returns that secret with one of his own, that I would argue is much more significant. That he has the immunity idol and is going to play it on one of the two of them tonight, making this one of the only times when lying about your job actually paid off in a huge way with actual actionable information down the road. Granted, Spencer plays the idol on himself and Jeremiah is voted out this round, dropping Jeremiah from potential game changer to, I don't know, 4th best male model to play Survivor. You're in good company, my friend. At number 7 is Brandon in Survivor South Pacific, who lied about being Russell Hantzes' nephew. Look, if they're putting that as his lower third, I can count it here, okay? Brandon set out to redeem his family's name following Uncle Russell's villainous turn in Survivor Samoa and Survivor Heroes vs. Villains, and he intended to do so by playing an honorable, God-honoring game. He also hoped to hide his Hantzian identity from the rest of the Upolu tribe, a feat easier said than done given the telltale lill Hantz tattoo on his arm. For the first few days of the season, Brandon really committed to this, even wearing his shirt while swimming, lest he give away the horrible truth. He's related to someone who played Survivor before. There's so much of those early days of Upolu I wish we could have seen with regard to Brandon. Like, what did he tell everyone his last name was? Brandon Hams? The lie weighs heavily on Brandon, and he eventually fesses up to Coach.
Want to see something cool?
What's that?
It says lill Hantz. That's
How
why I
come
wear my
people-
shirt all the time.
Wait, but that's not your last name, is it?
Yeah, I'm Russell Hantz's nephew. Just keep that on the DL.
I love that the show treats this as if the Hantzes are some sort of cursed bloodline, like they're the Borgias or something. They're just some dudes from Texas. At number 6 is Brett in Survivor Millennials vs. Gen X, who lied about being a cop. Brett spent his game denying he's a cop, instead telling everyone he's a funeral director. Very unconvincingly. At post-swap Ikabula, Hannah, Jay, and Will all begin to think something is amiss with Brett, because when Hannah asks him about his job, Brett is extremely evasive, giving details like, as a funeral director, you direct funerals. Funerals are the service where you pay your respects to the dead. You know, the types of intricate, in-the-weeds details only someone in the industry would know.
So I'm sitting there minding my own business, and Hannah starts asking me questions about the funeral home business. So I give her the answers that I think she wants to hear.
Do you do like one family at a time? How does it even work?
You make appointments and sit down and talk about, funerals and stuff like that.
This is Exhibit A for why lying about your career on Survivor is a pretty bad idea. Because Brett's so evasive, Hannah and the gang all suspect he's lying, even correctly deducing that he's a cop. He even catches Hannah and Michaela's votes at this tribal council in part due to this, and likely would have gone home if Jay and Will didn't vote out Michaela for basically no reason. The most hilarious part about all this, though, is that Brett apparently does work part-time in a funeral home, per his preseason interview with Josh Wigler, which makes his total non-answers all the more hilarious and perplexing. Brett legitimately sounds like a guy who just learned what funerals, homes, and funeral homes are. At number 5 is Crystal in Survivor Cabone, who opted not to tell everyone she was an Olympic athlete. Crystal told everyone she's a preschool teacher and full-time mom. She's also, at the time anyway, a track and field gold medalist at the 2004 Athens Summer Olympics. Certainly understandable that Crystal wouldn't exactly want to bring up her past in athletics, but it's not like anyone would have believed her anyway. Despite being an elite athlete for work, Crystal is easily one of the absolute worst challenge competitors in Survivor history. We're talking like bottom 20. I mean, the first challenge of the season is just running towards a hill, then running up the hill, presumably Crystal's forte. And yet Crystal's last across the finish line and only even makes it up to the top because Maddie and Dan come back to carry her up. This is probably Crystal's best challenge performance of the season. Yes, it's all downhill from here for a woman who was once on the greatest 4x400 meter relay team in the world, as she fails spectacularly at pretty much every single challenge she competes in. At number 4 is Russell in Survivor Samoa, who did not tell everyone he was an oil company owner, and instead told everyone he was a firefighter during Hurricane Katrina to gain fake sympathy and trust. Like Jim earlier in this list, Russell came into the game eager to lie about everything, including his profession, and he makes good on that on night 1, opening up to Foa, telling them about his experience as a firefighter when the levees broke during Hurricane Katrina, how his house was flooded, how he spent 2 days stranded on his roof, and how the rushing water swept away his German Shepherd Rocky. Only the thing is, Russell's never lived in New Orleans, he's not a firefighter, he's never had a German Shepherd, he hasn't even seen the movie Rocky. Yeah, Russell spun this whole yarn just to manipulate his tribe, and it honestly worked brilliantly. He has them all hook, line, and sinker. The only person who's suspicious at all is Marisa, and Russell makes short work of her anyway. Now, I'm not sure I'd recommend pulling the old Steve Ranazzi to everyone, but it seemed to work for Russell. At number 3 is Tony in Survivor Kagayan, who told everyone he was in construction instead of a cop. Now, if you showed a picture of Tony to me and I'd never seen Survivor before, I could tell you 2 things. 1, his name is Tony. 2, he's a cop. But Tony did not want everyone to know this obvious fact, even hiding it from Sarah when she asks him if he's a cop, saying he's in construction. At the time, Tony's anxious energy and mile-a-minute speech patterns seemed to be the world's most obvious tell that he was lying. Now we know this is just how he speaks all the time.
Will you look at me real quick? Will you be honest with me? Are you a cop?
No, why?
You swear?
I swear.
You look like a cop.
I could be a cop if you want. Why?
I find Tony's lie to Sarah hilarious because honestly, this could have been used as a great bonding moment early on, but his natural impulse is just to lie straight to her face. He presumably realizes the error of his ways a few nights later when he confesses. Tony's truly committed to the bit though, even keeping up the charade deep into the game, using construction analogies at Tribal Council long after everyone already knew he was a cop.
Line of work, what do you do?
Construction.
Loyalty play a part in the construction business?
Yes, you'll see it over and over, Jeff. You turn your eye, one of your tools are missing. It's just trust is a very, very difficult thing, Jeff.
If only everyone could just see a few years into the future and take a look at Tony's ladder building skills. This shoddy workmanship would clear up if he's in construction or not real quick. At number 2 is Marty in Survivor Nicaragua, who told Fabio he's a chess grandmaster. At post-swap LaFleur, Marty and Jill are in a bit of a bind, and desperately trying to get Fabio on their side, pretty much their only option at this point. In a rather bizarre effort to get Fabio to vote with him, Marty champions his strategic prowess, even telling Fabio that he's a chess grandmaster, roughly top 1500 in the world. He tells Fabio that he beat Argentine chess legend Guillermo Villa as a child. Of course, Marty's not a chess grandmaster, and neither is Guillermo Villa. He played tennis. Let me say, it's so on brand for Marty to pretend he's a grandmaster in the world's most cerebral board game. This is a guy who thought he was a strategic genius for outfoxing Jimmy T. But nevertheless, Fabio's impressed and heavily weighs shirking all his strategic responsibilities to Marty and just floating along the rest of the game. But he realizes he can shirk his strategic responsibilities and float through the rest of the game without Marty, and so the chess grandmaster lie doesn't exactly work. Regardless though, it's a stroke of genius, at least in mugging for the cameras. The greatest occupation lie in Survivor history is Gary Hogaboom in Survivor Guatemala, who told everyone he was Gary Hawkins, humble landscaper. Gary Hogaboom entered Survivor Guatemala as a former Dallas Cowboys quarterback and Survivor's first kinda, sorta famous person to play. Why Gary's lies resonated with fans so hard for so long is twofold in my opinion. One, his commitment to the lie that he's Gary Hawkins, even as he was ousted by Danny almost instantly. And two, his mild-mannered demeanor as he emphatically denies the lie. Danny, a massive NFL fan and literal sports broadcaster, knew who Gary Hogaboom was. She had a poster of him on her bedroom wall as a kid, and when Gary meets Danny at the swap in episode 4, she ousts him in front of the entire tribe.
And what do you
No football? Landscaper.
Who do you think I was?
Oh, I thought you played at Central Michigan.
No, I went to Central Michigan, but I didn't play it.
No?
All right, Gary, so you're not Gary Hogaboom.
No.
Even though your name is Gary, you went to the same state school, graduated the same year, and you look, sound, and act just like him?
No.
Well, story checks out. As to the second point, while most of the people on this list lied because they were huge gamers with a natural proclivity to lie, Gary did so out of necessity, believing his even minor football fame would be a death sentence in front of a jury who wouldn't award someone they thought was rich the money. But Gary was not a bombastic personality who enjoyed lying. He's just a really chill dude. He clearly dislikes lying. He looks like a deer in headlights anytime anyone even talks about football, but he commits to the very end. What, National Foot What League? Not familiar. You guys want to talk about how a retaining wall can efficiently use your landscape while adding aesthetic value? Got nothing else for you. To help me hire Gary Hawkins to landscape my lawn, like and subscribe, and I'll get you more Survivor content just like this. Until next time, don't get idled out.